Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius. It is a Thursday edition of the show where we will be talking about the Bucs Steelers matchup and why this is a game where, of course, the Buccaneers should win this somewhat handsomely. It's clearly a lopsided matchup between the 3-2 Buccaneers and the 1-4 Pittsburgh Steelers. But as they say, it's any given Sunday, and really anything can go on. So we'll talk about the top matchups going into this one. We'll also talk about the injury report that just dropped a couple of minutes ago, and of course, everything and anything that we saw from the Advent Health Training Center today when we spoke to Bucs coaches, players, and everything else in between. I am your host today, Matt Matera, and right now I'm writing solo just for a little bit, and then sooner rather than later, my fellow colleague from PewterReport.com, JC Allen, will be joining me as well. He's running into a couple of technical difficulties at the moment, so when JC gets his internet going, we'll bring him on the show as well. Appreciate everyone watching and listening to this show. Nathan, always right here and ready to go. He says, hi, Matt. Hello, Nathan. Thanks again for watching the show. Nathan also says, this game stinks of a trap game. Obviously, for those who don't know what a trap game is, it's usually when you have a inferior opponent, I guess you could say, and a big game looming the following week. But you know what? That's not necessarily the case for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because the following week after they play Pittsburgh, they're on the road again where they are playing against the Carolina Panthers. So not necessarily a trap game in that sense of it. But I understand what you're saying where Bucs could get a little bit lackadaisical. And as I said, the overall title of this is, will the Bucs blow out the Steelers in Sunday's game? A game really where the Bucs should, get back on track. They obviously won last week, but it felt a little hollow in the sense that they jumped out to a 21-0 lead and then allowed the Falcons back into the game. We want to see a complete game, a full 4 quarters from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And his internet's working now. Believe we're good to go. JC has joined the show. JC, how you doing, my man? And has everything worked out?
Yeah, technical difficulties. I don't know what's going on here, but we got everything straightened out. We're ready to go, ready to rock, ready to talk some Bucs Steelers matchup. I'm excited to do this pod with you today.
I am not hearing you, JC. I don't know if that's me or if that is...
Check.
Try to
Check.
Okay, looks like we lost JC. That's all right. I guess I'll just stick with the program. Let us know in the chats if I guess it's just me. I don't know. I couldn't hear anything, so maybe it's something on my end. In the meantime, let's talk about Celsius, which of course is the presenting sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast. We love Celsius for a number of different reasons. Of course, number one is because they have multiple different flavors, whether it's the tropical vibe, the Arctic peach vibe, so many different great flavors that Celsius has. You, of course, can also get the sparkling orange, sparkling watermelon, strawberry lemonade is another fantastic flavor. So make sure you go to Celsius.com, click on the store locator, find out where you can get a Celsius near you because they are all over the place now. I can literally go outside of my apartment, walk literally down, just cross the street, really, and I have a local store right near me where I can get a Celsius. They have it all over the place now, whether it's a Walmart, Target, your bodega, multiple different places where you can get Celsius. Or if you just want it straight to your house or apartment, that's fine too. Go to Amazon, click and save with Celsius. You can get multiple different types of Celsius flavors there. I'd recommend the variety pack because variety is the spice of life and much easier to get it that way. So make sure you're drinking Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. Celsius, #live fit. JC, what are you drinking there?
I got my favorite, the strawberry lemonade.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a really good flavor. I apologize. Everyone in the chat was saying they could hear you. I guess it was something on my end. Wasn't able to
We're back up and running. That's all that matters.
exactly. Where you fall, you get back up. That's exactly what we're doing on this show right then and here. So, JC, going into this game, listen, the players have to say all of the right things. We're not overlooking this. The NFL, it's a tough league. You never know who's going to win on a weekly basis. And that is ultimately very, very true. There's no lies in any of those statements that players usually come out with. But for us, we're not playing in the game. We can look at it, straight up, and we don't have to sugarcoat things. This should absolutely be a game where the Bucs win by, I guess I would say, at least 10 points going into this one. The Steelers got absolutely throttled last week against the Bills. I believe that game was in Buffalo, though, so a little bit different. Obviously, when you have to travel on the road, even when you're a bad team, if you're playing at home, you still get a little bit of that home field advantage. So looking at this one, do you agree with that statement that this is a game that the Bucs should absolutely win handily without really any cause for concern? Or is it a case of the injuries that have popped up for the Bucs? Is that going to hurt them too much in this game where maybe they don't lose, but it's much more of a nail biter than anyone really expected?
I'll see your 10 and raise you 4 more points. I think they should win by 2 touchdowns. If they don't, then there's a real issue here. Now, we know Mike Tomlin is going to have this team ready and prepared to play. We heard that from everyone today. We heard it from Byron. We heard it from Brady. We heard it from Larry Foote. These guys, he's going to have his guys ready to play. But the problem is the talent on this team for the Pittsburgh Steelers, whether it's due to injuries, whether it's just due to, just not being able to come together and figure it out, it isn't at the same level as what the Bucs are posting, even with the injuries that they're having. And, you look at it in the secondary, it looks like the Bucs, obviously they're not going to have Logan Ryan, but it looks like they potentially will have everyone back that they had last week, minus Sean Murphy-Bunting. So, and same thing at the wide receiver position. Julio is still the ultimate enigma there, but, Russell Gage did practice today. After not practicing yesterday, it was limited. So, I mean, it could be a situation where they're going in there with their top 3 wide receivers. They're going in there with potentially Cam Brate, Cade, Otton, their running backs, and everyone healthy on the offensive line. There's no reason why this Bucs team should not go on there. And, we talked about last week it being a get-right game, Matt. I think this game has a bigger chance of being a get-right game. You're going up. The Falcons were the games they lost were close, and the games they won, they were, we were playing for first place. They were playing for first place last week. The Steelers are not in that same predicament. They won their first game against the Bengals somehow, and they've been, trailing ever since, sliding ever since. Now you got a rookie quarterback on top of it, and rookie quarterbacks can be dangerous. But I just think that there is not enough on this Steelers team on both offense and defense due to injuries or just due to play level that they've had, that the Bucs shouldn't go out there and drop at least 30 points on this team. And the defense should bounce back and be able to hold them pretty significant low number of points as well.
Especially when you look at the Steelers defense, no TJ Watt, who obviously is the engine that drives not just that Steelers defense, but obviously the pass rush. Minkah Fitzpatrick has been banged up. He's played, but, he got injured in that Jets game 2 weeks ago and is pretty beat up there. And then you look at the injury report and the Steelers, like all of their secondary is it's a lot of injuries there. So, as we talked about last week with the Bucs taking advantage of a Falcons defense that, had talented players with Jarrett and Terrell. The expectation was still that the Bucs could go and pass the ball, get it moving down the field. It more or less feels the same this week. And, we can talk verbatim. We could talk for hours about Julio Jones and why it's been disappointing that he hasn't played. And, the injury is just unfortunate in general because he's so talented. But at the end of the day, you still have Mike Evans and you still have Chris Godwin. I know Godwin did not practice today. I'm willing to bet, we'll pay attention to tomorrow, see if he's out there, but I'm willing to bet it's more of just a precautionary. Hey, this is a guy that just came back from a hamstring injury. As long as you have those two guys, and then you sprinkle in Leonard Fournette, pretty much exactly what they did last game, where a lot of Leonard Fournette, Rachaad White did his thing, Cade Otton was a viable option. It's a two-headed monster with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and then a number 3 option by committee. It's just a matter of who's it going to be, but that's all right. But, with the injuries in the Steelers secondary, I think 30 points is definitely doable. But as we talked about how last week was a get-right game, the Bucs didn't get it right. They moved the ball down the field, but they didn't execute in certain really big moments, whether it was the 4th down play with Leonard Fournette, whether it was the fact that they got the ball 3 times in a row and went 3 and out and held the ball for a total of like under 2 minutes. It's just simple things like that where, sure, again, the Bucs would probably get away with it with this game against the Steelers, but it's becoming more routine that they just keep falling flat on their faces at times, and it hurt them against the Packers. They could do it against the Steelers this week, but that cannot be a consistent thing moving forward.
No, and you look at this team top to bottom, it's a talented roster at every position. I think the biggest thing has been, Matt, is just simple football basics. Simple things that, I don't like to make the comparison, but with the Patriots, they don't happen much. It's technique and fundamentals, going back to basics. And that's what we've seen. And that's where we've seen these players on both offense and defense, kind of struggle. And that's where those mishaps have happened. You look at the inability to get a hot start, the inability to sustain drives. It's because of, not playing the correct technique, not going back to your fundamentals and missing your assignments. And that is something that's been huge with this Bucs team throughout the first 5 weeks. They got to get back to basics, and they got to realize that, we are talented enough that we can beat anybody in the league. But if we're not going to play with the right discipline, we're only going to be able to beat ourselves and allow other teams to beat us. Because you look at this roster top to bottom, we've just talked about the wide receiver position and even Julio Jones. I mean, Julio Jones, yeah, right. He hasn't been able to stay healthy, but it's not like he's dealing with a soft tissue injury, which he's been accustomed to. He's dealing with a partially torn PCL on a play that he dove out to try to make a catch, to try to make a play. So, I think he needs to get a little bit of slack, a little bit of slack on that end, because it's not like it was a play where he, it just happened. He was literally putting his body on the line to try to make a play. And that's when it happened. So, I have no doubt he'll be back, but you're looking at Russell Gage now, he's limited in practice today. He could be working his way back. Godwin, as you mentioned, not at practice today, but it turns out it was a rest day, which is good. Let that guy rest up.
Yep.
Any more injuries in that wide receiver, but there's a twofold part of this. We're talking about the Bucs and their record and not being able to put things away. And, we listen to Brady, and he talks about that first quarter of the season is always when we try to figure everything out. Find out what our identity is. Find out what we're going to be good at, and turn it into what we're going to be great at. This Bucs team wasn't afforded that with all the injuries that happened. You look at on the offensive line with Donovan Smith missing 2 games and Josh Wells, and then at the wide receiver position, down the line, there was just injuries on that offensive side of the ball and some on the defensive side of the ball that didn't let that cohesiveness to kind of get together. The one thing that's good about these injuries is, so far, knock on wood, none of them have been season ending, and they've happened earlier in the season. So you hope that, those bumps and bruises are out of the way, and hopefully they can stay healthy throughout the rest of the season where it matters most down the line. But I think if this Bucs team can come into this Pittsburgh team, say, okay, we got to get back to basics. We've got to be able to start hot on both sides of the ball. We have to be able to sustain drives. We have to be able to get off the field on defense. We have to be able to stop and run defense, get back to our bread and butter, and what made us a great Bucs defense to begin with. Now we've got all these guys in the secondary that have been making plays, and we're getting after the quarterback more, but we have to get back to what made us so good, and that's stopping the ball. We have to get back to what made us so prolific, is passing the ball. I get you want to try to run the ball, but at the same time, this passing offense is one of the best in the league right now already, and it's because of the weapons and because of the quarterback there. The running defense will come. The rushing offense will come as soon as teams start to respect that pass more, and that it opens up lanes in situations like that. And as the old offensive line improves together and gets in sync.
Yeah, and I think the running game we'll talk about offense and defense with the running game. I felt the Bucs ran the ball, and obviously the Fournette 4th and 1 and not converting it there was a glaring issue. But overall, the Bucs were more pass first, which I really liked. And while they didn't run the ball a ton, I do think they were, for the most part, effective when they ran it. Again, if it's a 3rd and 1 and Rachaad White's in there, and he did a great job of converting on short yardage downs, if you only need a yard, that's really going to skew the overall yards per average. But you have to look at it as they converted that 3rd down. You needed a yard, they got 2 yards on the play, or 1.5 yards, whatever it was. I don't think we have to look at every single play like, oh, well, they didn't rip off 10, 15 yards. Now there's an issue in the run game. The Bucs should absolutely be a team that's pass first, either get a 1st down, make it 2nd and 3rd, 2nd and 3, 2nd and 2, whatever it is, and then you can run the ball. Right. We just hate it when they load up the box and then run it with Leonard Fournette and it goes nowhere. It's like, well, you're setting up the team for failure in the first place. And Byron always talks about, I want to put my players in the best position to succeed. Well, you're not doing that in that sense. So I think we saw the Bucs a lot more last game put their players in more advantageous opportunities. I loved it when they went, big run with Rachaad White and then a pass to Rachaad White 1st down, or vice versa when they flipped it that way. So I if they stick to that routine, that will help them for the long haul, not just this game against the Steelers. Now, stopping the run on the flip side, I think the Bucs did a better job stopping the run than what the stats will say against the Falcons. I think you have to factor in that Mariota scrambled a fair amount for those rushing yards. They had specific bootlegs and waggles and things of that nature for Mariota to stop the run. And sure, you can point and argue that, well, they need to be better at staying in their lanes in those passing situations when Mariota scrambles. That's fine, but that's not against stopping the run itself. There were a couple of times, I would say about 2 to 3 times, where the Falcons legitimately running the ball got to that 2nd and 3rd level, those 10, 15-yard rushes that had been really frustrating. One of them was on the touchdown in the second half. But I also think what you could turn to that and say is, well, the defense was consistently on the field in the second half because the Bucs were not able to move the ball offensively. So you talk about complementary football. I think the defense gets they're getting knocked for that when I don't necessarily think that they should have. And the Falcons are a team that runs it all the time, where I don't think we're going to see that with Pittsburgh. And I know Pittsburgh, predominantly in the history of their franchise, is play defense and run the football. But today's NFL, you're not going to do that as much. And also, John Ledyard, alumni, was on the show yesterday, and he talked about how Najee Harris just doesn't look like the running back that he was when they drafted him, and he made his debut in the NFL. So if you're already talking about your number one guy that they don't really totally trust, they're going to have to start passing the ball, and they do have talented wide receivers. But I think the run game, both offensively and defensively, I'm not going to say it's in a great spot or even a good spot, but I think in both sessions they are trending more towards the right direction.
Yeah, I think with the running game, it's just simply technique and fundamentals, Matt. I think that's like the theme of today for me.
That's
technique, technique and fundamentals. It's tackling, sustaining blocks, and not making sure that you're not being exposed and holes are being opened on you. You look at what the Falcons did. They were running into the fourth quarter. They didn't care. They had 31 rushing attempts on the day. And yeah, Mariota did break contain and get a big chunk of those, for nearly, what was it, like 60 yards or something, like that, 61 yards. So, you have to account for that as well. But, one of the other things too is tackling. Tackling has been an issue for some of these guys.
Yeah.
You look at the last 3 games, you've had a safety lead the team in tackles, and a lot of those have been running backs getting to that second level. You can't have that happen. So, I think this team is going to take a deep dive inside of what they need to do in order to get better at getting back to the bread and butter. And I think we see it this week. And Najee Harris, you're right, and John's right, hasn't looked like the same running back. And part of that is because that offensive line has kind of regressed in their run blocking. It's not something, the offensive line has been a work in progress for a couple of years now in Pittsburgh, but specifically the run blocking, they've really struggled this year, struggled to open up holes. And I think that's going to be a big onus for this Buccaneers defense, is to maintain their integrity in the gaps and maintain, the ability to not get bullied around. We've seen Vita Vea pushed around quite a few times this year, and he's got to play like the Vita Vea that we all know. And certainly not having Akeem Hicks there next to him, another big guy, or even taking a step further, Ndamukong Suh, who's no longer on the team, not having those guys, and that's taking nothing away from Nacho or Deadrin Senat, who both played a really, really good, I think, in Akeem Hicks' absence. But they got to play a little bit tighter. They've got to play a little bit better, and I think that will come this week against the Steelers. You have to correct. You have to correct what's been going on the past few weeks, and I think it gets time to get back down to technique and fundamentals, and they're gonna do that this week and have a really good game shutting Najee Harris down.
Yeah, and something you mentioned earlier that I want to talk about now is the fact that they are playing against a rookie quarterback with Kenny Pickett, and Todd Bowles has a great track record going up against rookie quarterbacks. So that's where I really think you're going to see that shutdown dominant game by the Bucs. Because let's be real, they've played a lot of really good quarterbacks for most of the season. Dak Prescott before he got hurt, and he got hurt later in that game. Sure, they took advantage of playing against Jameis with all the interceptions and the pick six. But then we're talking about Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes. So I think we saw when they played against Mariota, who's known more for his legs than his arm at this point in his career. I mean, really for his whole career. They got back to doing a great job of defending the pass. So now you have Bowles ready to call plays against Kenny Pickett. And the reason why everyone loves Todd Bowles' defense is because it's so unique. It's so chaotic at times. You have Nacho drop back in coverage. You have JTS drop back in coverage, and you blitz Antoine Winfield Jr. and Mike Edwards off the edge. That's a lot for a rookie to deal with, and not just a rookie that's starting his second career game and has only played. He came in the second half of the Steelers-Jets game 2 weeks ago, and then started against Buffalo. So we're talking about extremely, extremely new to just playing in the NFL. I mean, it's practically Bambi going out there,
right,
seeing what the NFL looks like for the first time. So I think it's important for the Bucs to just continue to generate that pressure. I mean, they've done a great job of getting to the quarterback, and for all the sacks they have, I believe it's 19 on the season. They could have had a couple of more. And I think you got to give credit to Mahomes and Rodgers when they escape that type of stuff. I know Kenny Pickett he's got legs and he can move. He obviously had that famous play at Pittsburgh when he ran all the way down the field and then faked the slide and then kept going, which really impressive play. But I also think at the same time, with an NFL defense with Shaq Barrett, Vita, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, everyone else that we've been talking about, Pickett isn't going to be able to scramble and get the ball out of his hands or just get away, kind of like how Mahomes and Rodgers have in other weeks. So I think this is a huge, huge game for the Bucs defense to just, again, establish why they should be a top 5 defense this week. And I think it's really going to be on the pass rush as well, JC, because we don't totally know who's going to be in the secondary outside of Jamel Dean and Antoine Winfield Jr. Mike Edwards is banged up. Carlton Davis has practiced 2 days in a row, so it looks like that he's going to play. But we're not talking about a secondary that's 100%. And I understand that all players are hurt at this point of the season, but I think there's your normal type of hurt going into a week, and then the injuries that the Bucs sustained. Mike Edwards, you talked about missing tackles. He missed a tackle, and that's how he got injured with his elbow. SMB with his quad. Davis has he's played in the last 2 games, but he's also left the game early in the last 2. So we're talking about, I don't want to say Carlton Davis is hanging on by a thread, but he's definitely susceptible. He's definitely nicked up and susceptible to potentially leaving the game early. And, the Steelers had talent at wide receiver. Pickens has been awesome as a pro, and Claypool, again, John Ledyard will get on his case a lot, but there's talent there. Right. And he really said that Deontay Johnson is the guy that kind of makes the Steelers offense go. If he drops some passes, they're kind of done. But when he catches the ball, it completely changes everything for the Steelers offense.
Yeah, I think the secondary, going back and looking at it, even against the Chiefs, who had that offensive explosion, the Steelers don't have a Travis Kelce, and majority of the damage done to the Bucs was by Travis Kelce. So, does that fall on the cornerbacks and safeties a little bit, right? But that's kind of more a little bit of a linebacker situation as well. So I think the cornerbacks and safeties will be fine. Not having Logan Ryan, you saw how it hurt them last week being with that versatile look. Keanu Neal is a good player, but he's not the same. He's not the same type of guy as a Logan Ryan. It doesn't bring that same aspect that allows them to be so multiple back there with that 3 safety look on the field. But I don't think I'm necessarily concerned about the corners as much. I think they need to really play. You talked about a rookie quarterback, and there's a caveat with a rookie quarterback, right? He's probably going to make some mistakes at some point in the game, but at the same time, as a rookie quarterback and pretty much given the reins now, he's going to be able to and want to make some of those throws that he might not that a veteran might not make, right? Something that Aaron Rodgers and Mahomes might not look at. He might chuck it up and now you get some chunk yardage there. It's something that normally would be a throwaway or something like that. So they're rookie quarterbacks can be prone to being a little more risk taking. And that's why the secondary, and I talked to Jamel Dean about it, you've got to stay disciplined in your coverage because, one of those plays, and now you're torched for 50 yards down the field and setting up a field goal or setting up a touchdown drive. So I think the cornerbacks will be fine. It looks like Carlton Davis is going to play, but you're right. He's definitely banged up. But for me, it's one of the situations here too is the pass rush. I think, as you mentioned, with Todd Bowles, that chaotic, exotic, all over the place defense, they need to test him early. Pickett through his 6 quarters has been surprisingly good against the blitz. Now he's thrown 2 interceptions, but he's also scrambled for a first down, and he's got over 150 yards on those on 11 of those throws as well. So he's made a little bit of magic happen going back to his college years as well. So you have to rattle him a little bit. You have to get him prone to thinking that, hey, someone's coming at any given time. I don't have much time to get rid of the ball. Curious enough that the Steelers defense, Steelers offensive line has been pretty decent at pass blocking, only giving up 11 sacks, tied for middle of the pack in the league. So, but I think it starts with the pass rush. It starts with the guys up front playing discipline, playing, in their lanes, making sure he's not, getting out of the pocket, making those crazy throws that could hamper the secondary down the field that other teams, other quarterbacks, veteran quarterbacks in the league might not make. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how they utilize him. Tomlin's going to have him ready. That he's going to have his guys ready to go. But those wide receivers are a handful.
Yeah, without question. Want to get to a super chat that we just saw, but first we're going to talk about Underdog Fantasy, one of the best places to go and pick some winners, especially for a Thursday night game that maybe isn't the most appealing to NFL fans that don't root for the Commanders or the Bears. But of course, you can win some money by watching that game with Underdog Fantasy. It's the easiest place to go get some action on the NFL. That's with Underdog Fantasy and their pick'em game. You just pick an over or under on your favorite or least favorite player stats. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single night. Underdog keeps it super simple with their easy-to-use website and mobile apps. Pick between 2 and 5 players to fill out your pick'em slip, get every pick right, and take home some cold, hard cash. Use the promo code Pewter, get your first deposit doubled up to $100 by Underdog Fantasy. Even if you learn from Plant City Math, you know that that's a pretty good deal. Once again, that's Underdog Fantasy with the promo code Pewter, Pewter. They also have a lot of great daily fantasy tournaments and things of that nature. You could do a Thursday slate. You could do an entire Sunday slate. And you could draft your team pretty quickly, too. You could do it within 10 minutes if you decide to do the fast draft. So make sure you're using Underdog Fantasy with the promo code Pewter. I won some money 2 weeks ago. 2 out of the last 4 weeks I've won money with Underdog Fantasy. So I'm looking to get another win this week when I use them. Let's find that super chat. Yeah, it was from Byron Turner.
Too.
What's up?
And you can play it in Florida too.
Yes, you can, which is very, very important. Byron, thank you so much for the $4.99 super chat. He says, I do think we lost a lot of swagger players like JPP, Sue, and Jensen. It matters when Vita is more like McCoy. Needs some nasty. Interesting comment there. I would say more attitude necessarily than swagger. Like JPP, I without question, I'm not knocking the Bucs for not bringing back JPP because it puts them in a weird situation where JTS is the guy. That's why you drafted him. He's got to be that starter. And JPP just can't stay healthy for a very long time. He looked awesome on Sunday Night Football for the Ravens. But again, one good week, that's great. I don't know how long he can do that for the long haul. You could also argue, well, the Bucs brought in a lot of free agents that are injury prone and have already been injured this season with Hicks and Julio Jones. But we're talking about outside linebacker. Missing Ndamukong Suh, I think, does have a little bit of an impact with Vita Vea. But I'm not willing to say that Vita Vea is playing like a Gerald McCoy. I think Vita Vea, while his play is down this year, he's still so important to this defense. He had a sack last week. And Jensen, he got injured. There's only so much that you can do with that. I do appreciate the super chat. I wouldn't necessarily say swagger. Devin White brings a lot of swagger. Nacho brings a lot of intensity. The secondary, they're grave diggers. Obviously, everyone talks about that and gets excited about it. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin on offense. You know, when you score points, that's swag. And they do that for the most part. Maybe not as much this season, but it's still going to be there when and if they need it down the road. But what do you think about that comment, JC? Do you agree, disagree?
Again, JPP, I agree with you. I don't necessarily think that was a move that they had to bring back. I don't know if with his role in the past on this team, if he would have been comfortable in a part-time role. It's easier to go to the Ravens and take a part-time role with Justin Houston than it is to come back and succeed that starting spot to Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. So I think that is, that's kind of water under the bridge. Same thing with Jensen. We know the demeanor Jensen brings. We know his affliction of getting under the defensive tackle's skin. We go back to last year, that Fletcher Cox incident in the Eagles game and so many others. But Sue, I kind of have to agree with what you said. I think, not having Sue or not even having a guy like Hicks, because I think Vita Vea looked pretty damn good in that first game. But I think not having that established big guy next to him has affected him a little bit. Sue is one thing. He was still demanding $8 million last time I checked to come back and play. Now, Jason Light said he's never going to shut the door on him. If there's a possibility to bring him back, if they feel like they need to, they will. But I think with Deadrin Senat's play, I don't think they're going to look at that situation right now, at least not until they know more about Akeem Hicks and when he could potentially be back. I think he'll come around. I don't think this is a season-long issue for Vita Vea. He knows that, about the way he's playing. We talked to Casey Rogers. He said there's no harsher critic than himself. He knows he's not playing up to his standards. He knows he needs to play better. So we'll see how that how that pans out going forward, but it only takes one game to find your groove and kind of get back into the swing of things. And I think that this could be one of those games where maybe Vita Vea looks like, that Pro Bowler, that guy that is one of the best defensive tackles, best nose tackles in the game. So I'm not in panic mode yet with him.
Yeah, and I think last game as well was a game where he got back on the right track. He had the sack. He had some other good plays where he got a great push and it was in the backfield. I think it's just more
fine. I think.
Yeah, I think it's just more of consistency type of thing with Vita. We've seen some flashes where he's looked really good, and then we've seen some plays where it's like, who the heck is this guy?
Who's pushing you off the ball like that, Vita?
Yeah.
I think it's been more the run game where I've been disappointed with his play. Pass rush, I think he's looked really good.
I agree.
That push in the backfield, obviously with a sack last week, and he would have had another sack. Was it against the Chiefs? I think, but he got the roughing the passer call or whatever. Or was that against the Falcons? I'm not sure. They're meshing together with me. But
yeah,
I think that was against the Chiefs where he got Mahomes, but it was a roughing the passer. He was like he got pushed into him or something like that. But I think, those it was actually last week. But I think, like you said, it's just getting back to basics. And I think he'll get back on track with stopping the run. It's just, I don't know what the issue is. I couldn't say, but I know that he's too good of a player to continue that type of play throughout the entire season.
Yeah, he's better than what he's shown so far. And I feel confident too that he'll be able to, pick it up as the going gets tough, as they say. And I think Hicks, if he gets back, now that's a big question too, is if and when Akeem Hicks comes back. I think that will help. That'll help too. I want to stick with the trenches, but let's flip over to the offensive side of the ball for the Buccaneers. We talked about how there's injuries on the defense. There's missing players, TJ Watt not there. But if there's one thing that's going to keep the Steelers in this game, it's going to be taking advantage of Luke. And obviously with Heyward, that's right then and there. That's how the Steelers, if they want to neutralize Brady dropping back all of the time, if they want to neutralize the run game when the Bucs do decide to run the ball, it's got to start with Goedeke doing a better job. Of course, against Heyward, it's obviously very difficult for him because he's had so many great defensive tackles that he's gone up against. And how much do you buy into? Obviously, there was that retweet I'm sorry, my mind's blanking. Is it Casey or Cameron Heyward?
Cameron Heyward.
Yeah, I don't know why I was thinking Casey Heyward, but Cameron Heyward, he had
Heyward's a cornerback for the Falcons that they played last week.
Okay, yeah, maybe that's where my head is.
I just call him Cam.
Yeah, Cam Heyward. He had that retweet where like some fan was like, Mike Tomlin doesn't know. Are you buying that was like a legit? He called it a butt retweet. I mean,
you're obviously reading it and looking at it, and a lot of these players, you wouldn't believe how many players actually search their own name on Twitter. If Bucs players, Donovan Smith does it. He's not tagged in a lot of these posts, but you see him retweet a lot of these things. He retweeted John like 5 times last week.
Yeah,
this past week actually after that Falcons game. But Cam Heyward, you're looking at it obviously. Or it's not going to be up. It's not like it's something that you weren't just showed up. That type of tweet doesn't just show up on your feed. You've searched your name for it. You're looking at it. You're reading it. Whether you put it in your pocket. I've had situations where I've liked stuff with the back of my finger holding my phone or something like that. But
yeah,
I don't know about it. But who keeps their phone in their pockets unless you're a girl, anyways.
Right.
For the most part. But I don't know if I necessarily buy. He's been there a while. He's seen a lot. He's won a lot. Now he's in a losing season.
I think he accidentally just tapped the retweet button because I've made the mistake. You're going through Instagram and you tap the button to see who's tagged in a picture.
Yes.
And then you tap it too hard and the like button hits. It's a little bit different with Twitter, but I don't know. I think again, if you just say, hey, my bad, I accidentally hit it versus I butt retweeted it. I don't necessarily see
The
that.
thing about the retweet button, Matt, is when you hit that retweet button, it gives you 2 options.
Yes,
right?
that's also true.
So
Yeah.
that's the problem where I'm getting. That's why I'm like, I don't know. So your butt hit retweet, and then it decided instead of a quote retweet.
Yeah, would you shift over and you're and,
right?
Yeah.
And if it does hit quote retweet and you don't write anything, you can still hit send and it will just retweet as a normal retweet. So I'm not buying it. I don't think it matters. I don't think it plays into this game at all.
Yeah.
But you look at Cam Heyward there, and you mentioned it before we got into the retweet. He's going. Luke Goedeke again has another hard assignment with another tough defensive tackle, from Onyemata to Kenny Clark to Chris Jones to Grady Jarrett, now to Cam Heyward. And Brady had a lot of praise for him. Brady said he's one of the best players he's ever played against. That's huge. And those Patriots team played those Pittsburgh Steelers teams a lot, especially during the regular season, but also in the playoffs. So he's seen him quite a bit. So to pour that praise on him like that, it's going to be a huge test for Luke Goedeke, another huge test. And it doesn't slow down next week either. He's got Derek Brown, who's starting to kind of come into his own. Has been a good anchor for that Panthers team. And then the Ravens, they don't have one of those guys where you're like, oh man, this really good defensive tackle. They still have Calais Campbell, but Justin Matabuke isn't. And then he gets Aaron Donald. So it doesn't slow down for Goedeke now. He's in the fire. He's in the flames, and he's got to perform better. We've seen he's been a much better run blocker than a pass protector. But that's going to get Brady killed. You got to switch it around. The first play of that game, Grady Jarrett tosses him aside and almost gets to Brady. Luckily, Brady got it off in time. It didn't go for a completion, but at least he got rid of the ball. He's got to play better. The guys around him have played extraordinary. Donovan Smith was ragdolling. I forget his name. He's one of the pass rushers for the Falcons last week, left and right. Robert Hainsey's been very good. He's been very steady. He hasn't been Jensen, but he's been a very steady presence. Goedeke's a clear, black sheep on that line. He's a clear guy who needs to improve his play, and it's not going to get harder. Any easier for him. It's only going to get harder as these weeks go by, and he's got to turn it around. And I don't know if I necessarily like this matchup for him either. I think we'll see a lot of Cam Heyward over him and trying to disrupt not only Brady's rhythm, but also disrupt the running game and just wreaking havoc in that backfield.
Another thing that deserves a lot of praise is pin chasers, which, of course, if you haven't gone to pin chasers yet, I don't know what you're doing. They have great deals and different deals for every single person that sets foot in one of their multiple establishments, as you see on the screen there: East Pasco, Zephyr Hills, Midtown, and Veterans. They have one pretty close to the Advent Health Training Center where the Bucs have their practice. But all the different deals, all you can eat pizza, all you can bowl, dollar beers, brunch on the weekends. Go to pinchasers.net, find out what deals that they have, because they got new ones coming out almost, on the regular. So the food is extremely underrated. It's not like just going to your typical bowling alley. The food is way, way better than what you would think going into a bowling alley. The pizza, chicken tendies, nachos, all underrated. And it's a fun night out with friends and family. You can book your kid's birthday party there because they have an arcade as well, so the kids can bowl, play video games too. So go to pinchasers.net, find out what is in store for you, and start booking those holiday parties. They're coming up in December. They fill up pretty quickly. So if you want to have your event at Pin Chasers, do it soon. They just had a very cool event the other night too, where Devin White at Live 45 brought out a bunch of kids for the Boys and Girls Club, and they had a big bowling event, and there was prize giveaways and a lot of cool stuff. So a lot of great stuff going on at
You never know who's going to be there. You never know who's going to be there. The Bucs players love to go there. Donovan Smith is probably going to have his bowling charity there. Mike Evans, before COVID came around, has had his bowling charity there a few times. So you never know who you're going to run into. Bucs players love that place, and it's awesome. It's a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun for sure. Last thing on Goedeke is, JC, where do you balance, scrapping it and just taking him out as a starter and putting in Brandon Walton or, whoever they decide to put in there, or, just riding it out because it's just kind of a growing pains type of situation with him.
It's difficult because I think you don't know if you're getting better play from those other guys, Leverett or Brandon Walton, or even if you brought in Eric Flowers or something like that, started him on the practice squad and got him caught up. You don't know if you're getting better play from there. What you do know is that if you take Goedeke out at this point, you're going to hurt his confidence. And confidence is one of the biggest things for a young player to get, is to stack those games together and continue to do well. You look what it's done for Cade, and you look what it's done for Rachaad White. Stacking games gives them more confidence, gives them more trust from the coaching staff, from the quarterback. I think that with Goedeke, it's just something that you're going to have to live through for right now. You look at the offensive line, you've got 4 other really good guys playing at a high level. And, if Tom Brady had a slower release, maybe you'd have to switch it out. But because his release is so good, because he's so smart and able to go through his progression so quickly to find the open man and utilize every single situation, whether that's a 9 route, 8 route, coming, digs across the middle of the field, finding the running back in the flat. He's so quick and can decipher what a defense is doing, that he can get the ball to where it needs to go. I think you got to live with it a little bit. And, if you look at the second half of this schedule, there's not as many guys that you're really worried about. He's not going to be going against Myles Garrett. So, he's going to be on the outside. So, with the Browns and with the he'll get Eric Armstead with the 49ers, but you're not really, there's no one on that Cardinals team that really, makes me nervous. And, there's a bit of a reprieve there. Same thing with the Seahawks. There's a bit of a reprieve there to kind of catch his breath and, gather what he's done well, what he's had struggles with. That's a bye week after the Germany game to kind of get it ironed out. Right now, this first half of the season, you just got to hang on, hold on for this ride, and then turn it up in the second half of the season. And I think he can be capable of doing that. He's got the talent. It's just, it's a lot, Matt. He's moving multiple things. Back conference to Grady Jarrett. He's moving right tackle to left guard, inside, outside. There's so many different things that are piled up on top of him that are changes for his play that once it becomes natural second nature to him, I think he'll settle in and be much better.
Yeah, we talked a lot about how the Bucs on the schedule, they had the gauntlet of the first month with all the teams that they played. But the gauntlet for defensive tackles has kind of continued for Goedeke. And you mentioned all of the guys that they play against. And, they obviously, again, playing against good teams coming up after this week in Carolina. They play the Ravens, who are a good team overall. The Rams, defending Super Bowl champions. I know they struggled a little bit starting out, but I'm not ruling them out to, go on a run with the players that they have. So I really do think it is part of that waiting out process. But I think like that bye week, the Bucs in part, every team does this, but the Bucs in particular, they really go back and assess the good, the bad, the positives, the negatives, and everything like that. And if you're going to make a change on the offensive line, it seems like maybe that decision will come after that Germany game against the Seahawks when you have a week off. And then they go through another somewhat kind of gauntlet. We'll see towards the end of the season. But again, the Niners, a very formidable team. The Bengals are up and down right now, but we obviously know the talent that they have. And then the Cardinals,
the Saints again, too.
Going out west, and the Saints again, too. So it's one of those, if you're going to make that decision, I think it'll come, right around the bye week. Another starting position, though, that I think we should talk about, and it's not his fault because he got injured, but it's the reality that we're in right now, and that's, hopefully Cam Brate is able to come back this week. But with the game that Cade Otton had against Atlanta, and I feel bad because Cam Brate, obviously, he's awesome with the media. He's been with the team for a very long time. But Cade Otton looked so good last week, and Brate was out with a concussion. Is it too early to name Cade Otton the starter, or does he have to continue to prove it in these upcoming weeks?
Yeah, I think Cam Brate was a starter really coming into this season out of experience. You look at the last 2 years, he's been the second string guy. Gronk's been number one, he's been number two, and I think he's kind of thrived in that role, in that pass catching role where they haven't needed to utilize him as a blocker. Cade Otton is a far better blocker. That's no knock on Cam Brate. He's tried to improve that position, but Cade Otton's a true wide tight end, and he's starting to develop that trust with Tom Brady. He's getting, he's getting open more often. He's making the catches, and I think that they drafted him to eventually be tight end one. I don't think they thought it'd be this soon, but I think that with the way he's played, with the trust that Brady has in him, he can be that guy. He can be tight end one for this Bucs team, and then sprinkle in Cam Brate and the other Bash brother and Co Keefe, in his role as a blocking tight end and someone who can catch the ball too. We saw that great catch. So I think what Cade Otton really needs to do is, and the Bucs haven't really utilized him in this way. And I see I think Harvinda just brought it up too, as a red zone guy, and prove that he can be a factor when the Bucs get down in that area and separate when the field is shorter, and use his height and athletic ability and his frame to box guys out and start reeling in touchdowns. So I expect him to get one soon, maybe against this Pittsburgh team coming up this week. But Cade Otton, to me, I think it's Cade Otton time for tight end one, and then sprinkle in Brate whenever you can.
I think you make a really solid point about the fact that Brady has bounced around from starter to backup to even third string,
Right.
at times. So it's a role he's more used to and has been effective as like a second or third guy. I do kind of hope Cade Otton becomes the starter soon, because I have him on my fantasy team. He's been on my bench, obviously, because he hasn't played that much. But my starting tight end is Pat Freiermuth of the Steelers, who got a concussion last game. So it's looking like he's probably not going to play
all in time for you
in this one. So Cade Otton become the starter, and obviously I want Cam Brate to be healthy, but Cade Otton becoming the starter would be perfect for me at the right time, especially because I drafted him probably like with my last pick or second to last pick, because people I'm in a league with that aren't Bucs fans don't really know that much about Cade Otton. But he was a middle round draft pick, so if he becomes the starter, the Bucs are going to feel like that, they hit the jackpot with finding this guy and making him the starting tight end. Almost kind of like how you would feel if you won money at the Seminole Hard Rock Casino in Tampa.
Just the way you like it. Me and my wife decided we'll have some fun. I was playing a 2-cent machine. 6 bets in, I hit a jackpot. $117,000.
Hi, my name is Tara, and I won over $500,000 playing slot. I do this full time, and I would not change it for the world.
I'm Gloria. I won over $2 million at Seminole Hard Rock Casino. I went and bought a bunch of jewelry.
My name is Mike, and I won over $350,000. I love playing baccarat because it hits different. When you pull in that card and you flip over that 9, beating that 8, can't miss.
I'm Jimmy. I won $500,000 in a slot tournament at Seminole Hard Rock in Tampa. Even a blind squirrel can get a nut sometimes.
My name is Philip, and I won $215,000 on Blazing Sevens.
Putting my last $40 on the table.
Next thing you know, bam, $215,000 jackpot. I hit that bad boy.
I didn't realize how much it would change my life.
You only live once. Have fun with it, right?
Anybody can win at Seminole Hard Rock in Tampa.
Never know when you can win big. And so go and check out the Seminole Hard Rock in Tampa. We're going to be doing some live Pewter Report podcasts from there. So keep on the lookout for that. As we start rounding out this podcast, we talked about the offensive line, tight end, wide receiver. We know what we're getting with Mike and Chris. I guess the real question is, who's going to be the third option? Can Russell Gage step up? Is Scotty Miller going to be... Like Scotty, I thought was solid last game. I don't know if he's a long-term answer, but if Perryman isn't able to play this week, which he might be able to, he's practiced. If Perryman ends up playing, I don't think he's consistent enough to be the third option. You got Rashad White and Leonard Fournette, obviously at running back, that were huge. The previous week. So where do the Bucs find that third option?
To be honest, I don't know if it's that wide receiver. I think it's Mike, Chris, and then anyone else. Everyone else who's open. I think it's a wide receiver 3 by committee type deal. I think you're looking at if Cade Otton's open, and Cade had a nice run and catch last week where he broke it. It was almost like a baby Gronk type run where he just kind of plowed through somebody. But you look at Leonard Fournette. I mean, last year he was 3rd in the league in reception, 3rd in the team receptions. He's 1st in receptions this year, and 2nd in yards, right behind Mike. So, they're going to utilize him a lot as a pass catcher out of the backfield, and he's probably most likely that 3rd option. And then you have guys like Russell Gage, Julio Jones will be part of the game plan. But Tom Brady, by the time he goes, and Mike's not always his first read, and neither is Chris. But by the time he goes through his reads and feels that pressure coming, if the dump off's there, he's gonna throw it to Lenny, and we saw that last week. It also depends on how teams play them. Last week the Falcons played prevent defense to keep them from hitting those deep balls and open up a lot of stuff underneath for Cade Otton and a lot of stuff for Leonard Fournette and Rachaad White. So I don't know if there's a number 3 wide receiver option on this team. I think it's just the number 3 option is whoever's open. Tom is not going to discriminate. If he trusts you out there, he's going to throw you the ball. And Scotty played a little bit of that role last week. I talked to Scotty today, and that's obviously something he's been trying to do. He's known for his deep threat ability to take the top off defenses, and he's utilizing that to his skill set. He had 2 plays that could have been 50-plus yard touchdowns. Brady underthrew him, and the DPI that wasn't called. Those could have, if those were placed in the right situation, right spots, he's looking at over 100 yards receiving and 2 scores. So just simple as that. But he's also using that to be able to have defenders and cornerbacks respect his speed, where he ran 2 really nice dig routes that he got good yardage, 1 for first down. And then he showed up in the blocking game as well. So, it's going to be whoever it's going to be, I think, changed from week to week. If you have Julio, if you have Russell Gage, probably shouldn't start them in fantasy anytime soon, because I don't necessarily know who's going to be that option week in and week out past Mike and past Chris. I think it changes on a weekly basis depending on how teams are playing them and depending on how the game plan's drawn up.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect Julio Jones near the field anytime soon. I just think, unfortunately, that's going to be the case for most of the season. And Russell Gage, I'm not saying they should sit him, but he's clearly not 100%, and it's really affecting how he plays. But a good question here by Me Sador. They say, why have we not seen White in the slot? He has great hands. So the Bucs have ran some formations where they'll be in shotgun and he'll start out lining up next to Brady, and then he will go and line up on the outside as receiver, and they'll have no running backs in the backfield. When you have Chris Godwin as like one of your main slot guys, you're not going to put Rachaad White in there instead when you have Chris Godwin. So it's not a bad idea, but again, when you have Chris Godwin, White is fine on the outside, because at the end of the day, you're getting that running back versus linebacker matchup that you want in the first place. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the slot. On the outside, it could be even more advantageous. So we haven't totally seen that, but we have seen him line up at wide receiver, which I think is a good thing.
And him and Leonard Fournette in the backfield at the same time, which has been fun. I think, I get, like I said, I already said it in the show, I get everyone's upset about Julio not being healthy and everything like that. But when you look at the situation, how he got hurt, he was laying out to make a play. And if he comes back at any point this season, if this offense starts getting going right now, like we've seen, that's just a bonus. Like getting Julio back towards the end of the season. Remember, guys, the Bucs are aiming for December football. That's when they want to be at their best. They've got plenty of, I think, options on this team to help keep that going. They don't need to score 30 points a game if the defense is going to be doing what they've been doing. Sans that game against the Chiefs, at least. But they don't need to score that many points. They don't need to be this prolific, high-scoring top, 1-2 like they were last year in the league. They just need to get the job done. And as players start to come back healthier, as Goedeke starts to settle in, I think they're going to be able to do that. So, whatever you get from Julio is just counted as a bonus for right now. Yeah. Let him rehab, let him come back, and then when he gets back, if he's not the guy after the Cowboys game, everyone was like, Julio, now because he hasn't played and they've instead of putting him on IR and having that situation, and we talked about it the other day, I think the reason why he's not on IR is because potentially if it was a must situation where everyone's out and everyone gets injured, they could play Julio, but it's in their best interest to let him heal and get healthy 100%. So they have him for the stretch. And that's what, pretty much Bowles said, we want to have him for the long haul. With Gage, it's just, he looked amazing in camp, Matt. I mean, Mike Edwards said he's been running routes that are virtually uncoverable. And we saw the relationship he and Brady had. The problem is he got that hammy, and then now it's a back, and now it's an ankle, and these injuries have started piling up. I don't think you can say someone was a bust of a deal or $10 million for this or whatever. I think the going rate for a wide receiver 3 is going to be around $10 million soon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at the market right now. So I don't think you can look at the money and be like, oh, we wasted all this money. I think once he gets healthy and going forward next year and hopefully later this season, he's going to be an asset to this team. You go back to that Green Bay game, 12 catches, the touchdown. He looked really good, and I think he's got that ability to look really good. It's just banged up. You guys got to have patience.
Exactly. Patience is the key.
Right.
Whether it's everyone asking for Gronk to come back, and then Cade Otton did what he did last game. Whether it's getting Rachaad White in the offense in general. Whether it's is Brady hurt? Is Brady not the same Brady? Because, he didn't throw the ball much in the first 2 games. Well, then he started airing out, and he's 3rd in the league in passing yards. So, I understand. I said this the other day. Everyone wants everything like right now, right this instant. That's just not always the case, and we're learning that with the Bucs in multiple areas on this team on offense and defense. I want to remind everyone that the Pewter Game Day show and the Pewter Tailgate show will be taking place. Tailgate show first, live from Walk-Ons at 11 o'clock. That's the Walk-Ons in Wesley Chapel, closer to JC and Scott Reynolds' neck of the woods.
Yeah.
They'll start that at 11 o'clock, and then myself and we haven't announced the guest yet, but myself and a guest will be doing the live in-game analysis, the Pewter Game Day show at 1 o'clock when the Bucs travel to Pittsburgh and play against the Steelers. So we're going to have a lot of great content and analysis and information when that goes on. Again, Walk-Ons, make sure you check it out. There's one in Midtown, a little bit closer to me. I love going there. And then the one in Wesley Chapel as well. They got happy hour all day on Tuesdays, and their happy hour deals in general are fantastic. But one more time, that is the where was it? I just had the graphic. It is the Celsius Pewter Report Tailgate Show presented by Age Rejuvenation, live at the Walk-Ons in Wesley Chapel at 11 o'clock. And then the Pewter Game Day Show presented by Celsius at 1 o'clock for Bucs versus Steelers. We're going to be having a lot of fun just giving our reactions to every single thing that happens in the game. And that's what's fun, is you never know what's going to happen. So stay tuned for all that fun stuff coming up on Sunday. But that's going to do it for us for now. For JC Allen, I'm Matt Matera saying thank you, everybody, for watching and listening, and we'll see you on Sunday for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.